Hello, everyone. Welcome from different parts of the world, I see. I'm here in Weesp in the Netherlands. So, tonight's webinar, I'm going to talk about Yin Yoga and also giving you some tools how to teach it and or practice it. So, and if you have any questions along the way, first I will give a little chat, and then when I see there are some questions, I will try to answer them. So, hello everyone. So my practice or my talk this time is about Yin Yoga. So first, let's kind of recap what actually Yin Yoga is. So Yin Yoga, in comparison to other styles of yoga, is a very quiet, meditative, and actually very mindful practice, in the sense of because you're staying still for a longer period of time, so you can really dive into the stillness that Yin Yoga provides. So in those 5 or more minutes that you are in the practice, you are able to go inwards and to feel or to notice anything that comes into the mind, or to feel anything that comes up in the body when you're practicing a pose, and to kind of feel the energetic effects of that. So in that sense, Yin Yoga is quite different than, for example, the more Yang-like practices. And in Yin, you really want to explore that depthness, so to say. So you're staying for 3, 5, or more minutes, which I go into more detail a bit later on. And actually what you do with Yin is therefore physically that you stimulate your fascia, your deeper connective tissue, which is either the joint or the tendon or the bone. So basically, due to the pressure or the stretch or the twist or the compression that you apply with the pose onto the body, it stimulates the yin fascia, so to say, or the yin tissue, which is the fascia of the body deeply. And that actually triggers a hydration of those tissues more, which makes you eventually feel a little bit more flexible. So that is on a physical level what happens. But also because everything is embedded in this fascia that you are stimulating, is the nerves, but also your lymph system. Your cells are in there, your veins are in there. Actually, it envelops the organs and your muscles. Everything is enveloped by fascia. So when you place yourself into a pose, you mainly want to target a certain area, but you can actually feel it throughout your whole system, even up until the very vibration of your cell. So, and as it also stimulates the lymph system, so it helps to actually detoxify the body. It helps to unwind or release deep tensions. It actually encourages your blood flow. So on a physical level, it can also help to really release those deep knots you might have sometimes in the muscle tissue. Or actually, if you hurt your muscle, it can help to gradually heal itself. So on a physical level, that is all what Yin Yoga can do. Then on an emotional level, because you're staying still for such a time, and actually, if you stimulate your fascia, and the cells are in the fascia, and it's the cells that have a memory. So the moment you start to open up in a pose, or you start to press a certain area where a kind of trauma has been hidden or stuck, so to say, and it's not necessarily only the hips, but it can happen anywhere. It can also be an opening of the heart, for example, that an emotion is being released. So it can also be a very healing in that aspect. So that is also what Yin Yoga can do for you. And then because you stay for a while and you have the time to observe, and it's meditative in that sense, so you are able to watch your thoughts, and you can watch what you're thinking. You can watch the patterns that you have in your thinking, and also how that influences your emotional state, or how that influences your physical state. So it might create some tension somewhere, or it might enhance your heart rate when you're thinking of something. So then it becomes clear that actually everything is connected very much. as in comparison to a more yang-like practice, that can also be felt. But because it's more dynamic, it is more difficult to notice or feel those very subtle things at the beginning. So when you do a yin practice, you actually have the time and the space to experience all that. So that is actually, in short, really short, what a yin practice is and what it stands for. And then sometimes people ask me like, okay, but what is then the difference between a yin yoga practice and, for example, restorative practice, which is also very yin-like? But in restorative practice, actually, you want to prop yourself up using blocks or bolsters or pillows or whatever it is that you need so that you can relax completely and restore yourself. It doesn't have the goal of that you actually want to change something. And that is the difference with yin. You want to put yourself into a position in order to stimulate the fascia, which then triggers everything on an emotional, physical, or energetic level in order to create some change, to enhance, for example, the chi flow or the energy flow, as also the meridians are in your fascia. So once you stimulate the fascia, you also stimulate the chi flow. So when there is some pain or a tension somewhere, then that means that this chi flow is obstructed or stagnated. So with doing a yin pose, you can release that stagnation and then allow the chi to flow again, the energy to flow again, and to create health in that sense, or to create a healthy chi flow, let's say it like that. And in restorative yoga, that's not what is happening. The main thing about restorative is that you position yourself in such a way that you can relax and restore your energy, but not by opening up certain areas. So you don't want to feel a specific sensation or intense sensation somewhere in the body when you do restorative yoga, which is the case with yin. And that makes it very hard practice also for a lot of people. Like, it looks easy in the beginning, putting yourself in a pose and just staying there for 5 minutes or so. But then when you're there and then the intensity of the sensation comes up, then all of a sudden it becomes intense, because you might sometimes be overwhelmed by the intensity of the sensation, or you might be overwhelmed by the resistance or the fear, the emotion that comes up, or irritation that comes up, or a worry that comes up when you're there. And that is actually the practice of yin, to like be with that discomfort, which should be doable, because otherwise you will not be able to relax, but kind of a doable discomfort, and to be able to stay there and to observe it. And then the yin practice will teach you that when you're not reacting or when you're not doing something, then actually everything changes all the time, whether it's a thought or an emotion or a sensation. It comes up like a wave, but it also goes away after some time. And therefore it's a great preparation for meditation also, because when you sit in meditation for a longer period of time, the goal is also to sit with whatever arises. So, and then the yin practice in that way can help you out really greatly to deal with that sensation, physical sensation that comes up, and that you just want to be there, sit with it, and experience it. And sometimes that can give you an insight into something, into an illness or pain that you have somewhere, or all of a sudden a memory comes up, or you see yourself reacting in a certain way to that sensation, and that all of a sudden gives you insight in how you actually react to things. Also, when in your day-to-day life things happen that is difficult or unpleasant, and that you have a tendency to react in a certain way. So that in that way, yin allows you to maybe wait before you react, and then sit with that sensation, and then from a point of wisdom or insight to decide how to react to that, instead of just kind of reacting out and blurting out or doing things from a pattern or an urge or an instinct. So that is the difference between yin and restorative. And then sometimes also say, oh yeah, I practice yin sometimes when I'm watching television. Of course, then you put your body into a position and then you are stimulating your body. You're opening up certain areas of the body. And then, of course, you're stretching that area. But what makes it different from just stretching and practicing yin yoga is, again, that mindful attention, that going inward when you practice it. You just go in, and actually your attention cannot go anywhere else than just in to that what is happening in that moment. So when your attention goes outward to watching the TV, which of course can be done, I'm not saying that you can't, but then the experience of what yin has to offer is going more outwards. You kind of lose that really deep connection with yourself, or your opportunity to really go inside and to experience what that is in the moment. So I'm just checking if I wanted to mention or have mentioned everything there, what I wanted to mention. Yeah. Yes. So that is what yin is. And that is the difference between different styles of yoga. And then always comes the question also, like, okay, so how do I practice, or how do I teach yin then? So practicing yin is a bit different than how to teach it. Because when you practice it for yourself, you want to choose for yourself, okay, which pose do I want to do after having felt, okay, how do I feel in this moment? What is it that I need in this moment? And sometimes we don't have this awareness of what you need in this moment. So then when I practice myself, I just sit on my mat, I feel my body, and then I'm like, okay, I feel like opening that area, or I feel like targeting this meridian pathway, or I feel like working with this emotion that is present right now inside of me. So then I choose a pose and go with that. And then I stay either 3, 5, 10 or more minutes, or actually, I don't actually put the timer. I just go with what I feel. So to allow myself to listen to what my body or what my feelings actually indicate of, like, okay, now I felt through it, what I need to feel and what I need to go through, and then I go out of the pose. And that is actually very important, to not, maybe as a beginner, to say, okay, I put a timer, because in the beginning it might be difficult to stay for a longer period of time in the pose. But after you've practiced yin for a while, it might not be necessary to set the clock anymore, and just to kind of go with what it is that you feel in the moment when you practice it. Then when you are in the pose, it's important that you relax the muscles in the area of what you want to stimulate. So in Yang Yoga, you want to engage the muscles. You want to create this heat and blood flow so that you are kind of stimulating the muscle tissue. But in Yin, you want to relax the muscle tissue so that the stimulation can go deeper into the connective tissue, into the fascia of the body. So therefore, it's very important, once you stay in a pose, when you chose a pose, that you stay there for a while, and then also that you are relaxing the muscle in that area, and that you stay still. Because the moment you starting to move, then again, your muscle tissues are engaged. So you want to stay still and have this state of mind of non-doing, of just observing what is there, and to be with whatever is there in that moment, without wanting to change it or altering it with slightly repositioning the body. When your body hurts when you're in a pose, of course, then you should adapt the position. So an indication there can be if it's a sharp stinging sensation that you feel, for example, in the knee, then yes, adapt the body in such a way so that you still feel the area that you want to stimulate, but you do not feel it in the knee joint, a sharp stinging sensation, or in the lower back if you're doing a back bend, or in the groin area when you're doing a forward bend, or in the shoulder area when you have your arm up like this and it's pinching right there. So these are indicators of, like, okay, slightly adapt the pose so that you don't feel that sharp stinging sensation anymore. Also, when you're in the pose for some time, your body starts to kind of melt. You start to surrender into the pose. And then also after a minute or so, it can be that you need to just slightly adjust your body so that you can ease into the pose even more. And that is also okay for you to do when you practice yin. Of course, you can also activate, for example, in seal pose, you can activate your arms to hold yourself up in that position, but that would be a lot of work to hold yourself up with muscular effort for like 5 minutes or so. So then make sure you're making use of the bones, stacking the bones on top of each other so that you can kind of hang and make use of the bones and hang into seal pose so that you can relax the body when you're stimulating the lower back or the front of the body, opening up the front of the body for like 5 minutes or more. And then you're there, and then it's the decision, okay, what is my personal depth? Meaning, what is a comfortable discomfort, or what is what I can do today? So not striving for a depth from the mind, but really going inside and feeling what it is that you're doing in the moment when you do the pose. Hey, is this doable right now for me today? Is this the edge that I want to stay at? Or is it actually triggering so much that for me today, this is too much. I need to back off a bit. Doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go out of the pose, but just to kind of play with that edge of, okay, maybe I have to go down a little bit if it's a back bend and not go as deep in the back bend, for example, or use some support if I'm doing a forward bend or a side bend. Yeah, so that I give my body a little bit more time to kind of ease into that edge before I stay there. So that can be a choice, that you kind of diminish the sensation and give yourself some more time. Or it can be the choice that you say, okay, today I really want to work with that edge where it's on the border of like, it's too intense, it's too, and you notice your heart rate going up and you're starting to tense up the body, but then you actively want to relax all the time. And if you can do that when you're in the pose, then that might also kind of bring some depthness or some insights when you go through that space of discomfort. Because again, discomfort has a peak and then it eventually disappears again. But sometimes that peak, you go into a depth of intensity and then a new intensity opens up and then a new one. So you kind of go deeper and deeper into the pit, so to say. And there you always have the choice. Okay, do I go there? Is today the day that I want to go there? Can I handle it today? Or is this a moment of like backing off? So important to know is that I'm not talking about sharp stinging sensations there, because sharp stinging sensations is always a signal of the body like, okay, this is, you are placing your body right now in a way that is not good for me. So then you need to adapt. But if it's an intensity that you feel over an area and you're just like, whoa, this is very intense, then you have the choice to kind of say, okay, I go and dive into that, or I back off a bit because today is enough. Or you shorten the period of time that you are in the pose and you say, okay, now I've been there, I've worked through that, and now I want to come out of the pose. That is all doable. So then also the breath can help you go through that intensity or that intense situation that you're in right there. And there are different pranayamas that you can use for that. You can use like diaphragmatic breathing. You can elongate the exhale. You can even use ujjayi in a very yin, subtle way to help you go through it. You can retain the breath by breathing into the space, hold it into that space where you feel that there's a lot of tension or resistance. Breathe in a bit more to kind of deeply open up from the inside. And then when you exhale, you really want to help with your breath, the letting go effect or the release effect of when you're there. And then, of course, props can always be used to make yourself a bit more comfortable, not taking away the stimulation like you want to do with restorative yoga, but to kind of give you the support so that you are able to let go into the pose. So still feeling the stimulation, for example, in the inner thighs, but not too much, because that is kind of that edge that you don't want to go to in that moment. So then props can really be helpful to kind of help you playing with that edge to find your limit, so to say. Walls can also be used, can also really be helpful to find a way to relax better or to release better. And especially when you don't have the pelvic tilt. In one of the webinars, I was talking about the pelvic tilts, and due to the skeletal variation of bodies, sometimes people cannot fold forward with the pelvis and they fall backwards. So then the wall can be a very good option, because then you eliminate the pelvis that needs to fall forward from the pose. And then you can just focus on, for example, areas in the legs that you want to focus on. So that is a way of how to practice yin. And then when you teach it, that is again different, because then you're in a different position when you want to teach it. First, you want to prepare the room. Do you have enough props? What is the temperature? How is the smell? How is the sound? How are the sounds outside? What is the weather like? Because sometimes you can actually use that as a teacher. When it's raining or thunder or windy, it can actually help you to create a certain atmosphere in your yin practice. Then the important thing is, as a teacher, for you to yourself to become yin. So maybe something happened that day that you are really influenced by, but you have to teach. So then it's very important to take a moment for yourself, to come back to yourself, to come to that yin attitude, and then to teach from there, because people will feel and notice it when you're teaching it, what your energy is like. But that said, you can also sometimes use what you've experienced that day as a theme for your class. So then we're talking about sequencing, actually, or what the subject of your class might be. I always advise people not to talk about their own experience, like, oh, today I had this day of but you really use it as, okay, maybe grief came up that day, or letting go, difficulty of letting go of something can come up during the day. So maybe that can be a good theme to use in your yin practice that you're guiding people through. So, and I'm always a big fan of communication also. So before I start the class, I check in with people like, hey, how are you? Is there anything that I need to take into account? And there are several ways of how to do that. So you can check in with person, but individually asking, or you ask it in the group if the people in the group know each other well. And there is this safety in the group that they have no problem to share what it is that they're feeling. So that even though you have a class prepared, that you can still make some adjustments to the poses, or that oh, this person has some difficulty with this, or has problems with the knee, or has a hernia, or is pregnant, or there are so many, has a headache, or whatever, or has an emotional day. So then you can take that into account also when you're giving cues while guiding people through the poses, or while guiding people through the class. So you can mention certain personalized things when you're guiding people in the poses. And then the theme, because sometimes that is, I mentioned already, like you can use something that has happened today, but sometimes you have a theme. For example, for the class, you want to work on digestion, or you want to work on connecting to your heart, or you want to work on judgmental thoughts, or you want to work on an ailment, lower back pain issues, or knee trouble, or stiffness in the hips, anything, or elemental classes, which are focusing more on the meridians. For example, you take the metal element, and then you have the lung and large intestine meridians that you focus on. So there is a huge variety of things that you can focus a class on. Or you can just stay physical and say, okay, I really want to open up, for example, the quads and hip flexor area in the front of the body. Or I want to focus on forward bends. Or I want to focus on asymmetric poses. Or I want to focus on, I have more tension on this side of the body. So then what do? Do I stay and give more attention to that tense side? Do I need to practice the poses equally? Then say, maybe I give the yogis the choice to say, okay, stay longer in your more tense side and then shorter in your more open side. And that will then be different for your students. So you will have students who do different things and different timings when you guide the class. So there is a wide range of things that you can think of, what the theme would be, or what the focus or the goal would be from your class. But when you have that clear, then you decide, okay, what poses do I do to get that target, to get that goal of what I want to do with my class. And then also, how long of a rebound do I give, depending on the pose that I chose. For example, after snail, which is a very intense pose for a lot of people for the spine, and it can release a lot of things. After that, a long rebound would be great to do. So a long rebound can be 3 minutes, 5 minutes, to really experience the effect of the pose. You can also choose to say, okay, I do a more dynamic counter pose. After I've done, for example, a forward bend, I do a tabletop movement, going up and down to allow the chi to flow again and to make a counter movement in the body. But you can also choose for a counter yin pose. So then saying, okay, I've done a forward bend and now I do a back bend. Maybe not as long as the forward bend, but I use a yin pose for a back bend, as a counter pose to make the energy, or to change the movement of the body. So you have a lot of choices there, what to do and how to do it, which influences the bhava of the class, or the mood of the class, or the ambience you want to create with the class. Then also the way you talk, like how much do you talk, and then the amount of silence that you leave while you're guiding the class. That also influences the mood or the energy in the class. And when to say it, your timing, for example. And in the meantime, you're observing your students, because when you're observing your students and they have some difficulty with a pose, and you see that and you assume that something is happening, then you can throw a cue in there, like, okay, if you feel this, then you can do this and this variation to adjust your body so that you don't feel that anymore. And then if still some people are moving, then you can actually go there and communicate with them and ask, hey, are you feeling that area that we want to feel? Or do you feel any sharp pain anywhere? Then, okay. And if this person says yes or no, then you can give some verbal adjustments, or manual adjustments actually, to help them play with the body and to find the right position for them, so that the pose is beneficial for them and that they actually get that out of the pose that you want them to experience when they are in the class. Yeah, and then again, you can make use of props. You can use the wall. You can also offer a different pose that targets the same area, because sometimes a person with different variations, or having experimented with their body to position themselves differently, doesn't work to get into the area that you want them to feel, because that's your goal. Then sometimes it can help to offer a different pose that targets the same area, but that person can do that variation and then also targets the same area. So in that, when you offer that, you actually create a safe space where people can experience the effect of the pose, and that the yin practice talks for itself, actually, and that you can put in there in your class whatever you want to throw in there, whatever comes up, and what is connected to your theme of the class, gradually, bit by bit. And then guiding them step by step out of the pose, or guiding them step by step in the pose, or guiding them step by step out of the pose and then guiding them into a rebound or into a counter pose. So you bit by bit do that. If you want to adjust manually, then also really be aware of the functional adjustment. So I always actually explain, like, okay, when you in for example the anatomy and yin online teacher training, we go really deeply into how to functionally adjust the lower body poses, and in the yin and meridians course I go into how to adjust functionally the upper body yin yoga poses, so that you find a personalized way to practice that pose without injuring yourself, and that you position yourself in such a way so that the energy can flow and that you stimulate that area that you want to stimulate. So that is actually, in short, how you should teach Yin Yoga, or how you practice Yin Yoga, and what Yin Yoga is. So if you have any questions for me of all the things that I've said, or you want to have some elaboration on something, please let me know. And then I can have a look at the questions. So yeah, Rosie, you have already the first question explaining what the rebound means. So rebound is actually the experience you have after doing a pose. So that is an energetic sensation, the energetic echo of the pose, so to say, or the intensity of the sensation after coming out of the pose. It can also be an emotional effect or a mental effect. So the rebound is different for everybody. But in general, if you talk about the physical sensation, that can sometimes be an intensity, and sometimes so intense that you really, really have to trust the fact that the sensation is going to go. Or it is a very enjoyable sensation. You feel completely relaxed and you feel this bubbly, warm, tingling sensation throughout the whole body, because it's actually the fascia resetting itself. Physically, what you're doing is, when you position yourself in a pose, you stimulate the fascia. So temporarily, the fascia, which is in a more of a gel state, when you are stimulating it, then temporarily it changes into a more liquid state. And then when you're out of the pose and you feel literally the flow of energy, the flow of this fascia kind of reestablishing itself, being detoxified, being replenished with nutritions coming into the areas, and you feel that as this high. Sometimes it's described as a high feeling, or a warmth, or a flow, or a wave of a sensation. So I hope that helps for you to understand what the rebound means. Sahar, any advice on teaching yoga, yin yoga in postpartum period? There are many different options on it, and so I'm interested in yours. Yeah, well, yin, first of all, is great to do when you're pregnant, because it helps to release certain tensions due to the changing of the body. But then afterwards, your body is so open, you still have this relaxin hormone in your body, which all the fascia, all the connective tissue, makes it very loose. So practicing yin right after the delivery is, again, you can use it to release tensions due to the delivery that you've been going through. I did it myself as well. I have 3 kids, and afterwards, like, for example, stiffness in my bum muscles, it was really great to kind of lightly stimulate that. But the goal there is never to open up or elongate more. The goal there is to release tensions that you have accumulated due to the delivery itself. Or when you're breastfeeding and you're holding your body for every 3 hours a day in a certain position, you can get sore shoulders or back. So therefore also yin practice can be great to release that. But yin in general, like hip openers, that is something that I would not advise to do, because after delivery, your body wants to go back to its natural shape. It wants to close up again. So more yang-like movements and strengthening movements are more advised, or which I advise most of the time after delivery. And then gradually, with time, when you feel that your body is not so wobbly anymore, then you can start to gradually and put yin poses there. But the focus there mostly is yin is not for opening up any area. Yin is more for the release of tension and to connect with yourself and to stay in connection with your heart and with your emotions and your mental state, so to say. So you can use yin for that. I hope that helps. So Rosie says, when coming out of the pose, so do you suggest a pose to be in afterwards? Yeah, it can be a resting pose, for example, in rebound. So you have done a forward bend, and then afterwards you lie down in a Shavasana position, for example. So you lie on your back. But a resting pose can also be lying on the side. Sometimes a resting pose can also be lying on the belly or seated position or child's pose. So there are different positions that you can take to feel the rebound, the effect of the pose that you've previously done. Harmony says, do you choose music with a signal after 3 minutes or 5 minutes, or do you just use your watch? I don't. Well, you can. Those are all possibilities to do. You can use music if you have timed it in such a way that the length of the music is the length that you are staying in a pose. Great idea. Some people actually use a watch or a timer that it goes off after 3 or 5 minutes. I have to say, though, that it's not necessary to stick to 3 or 5 minutes, because if you are a beginner or an advanced yin practitioner, an advanced meaning a person who has done a yin yoga practice for a very long time already, it is not about the length of the minutes. Actually, I'm a big fan of staying longer in the poses than shorter. And if whether you're a beginner or an advanced practitioner, when you are a beginner, you have more tension, so it might be more difficult to stay as long. But if you take in mind that personal depth or that comfortable discomfort, that is your limit, then a beginner or an advanced practitioner can stay as long. So it doesn't matter then if you stay for 7 minutes or 10 minutes or 5 minutes, because each and every one chose the depth of the pose that they can handle to be with. So that is always sometimes a question too. Like, beginners should be doing 3 minutes. Well, I put beginners and advanced people alike in the same amount of time in the pose. So, and me personally, I don't use a clock when I practice myself. Like, I do it without. If I teach, I kind of go with the energy also that is in the class. Like, sometimes when I offer poses like dragon pose or square pose, I kind of go with the energy. And then when the energy kind of comes irritated or people want to come out, then I actually on purpose guide them through this uneasiness, to kind of go through that, to guide them through that. But a choice can also be to say, okay, I do 5 minutes one side and 5 minutes the other side. So when I kind of go through this emotional or energetic aspect that I decide, okay, now it's time to come out, I kind of check my watch to see how long they were there. And then for the other side, I try the same thing. But it's not a bad thing if you're 1 minute more or less in one side than in the other side. So you don't walk away crooked or something. So I hope that helps. Okay. Yeah, Valentina, have you ever used chakras as a theme? Yeah, I can. Most of my experience mostly is with meridians, but chakras actually are very closely connected to energy anyway. So whether or not you're talking about meridians or about chakras, it is the same thing. And also when you talk about chakras, you can really greatly work with the emotional aspect that is triggered when and that you can work with when you work with a chakra. So currently, actually, I'm working in an online workshop with Yin Yoga, Reiki combined, working on a chakra. So yeah, I do work with that. Valentina, maybe include some practices as Mula Bandha if the theme is Muladhara chakra. Yeah, you can do that. For example, if you start with a meditation focusing on the Muladhara chakra, and then you can use the bandhas to kind of activate the pelvic floor to get yourself into contact with that opening of the chakra, which is the flower of the chakra, so to say, whereas the root is more the coccyx of the chakra, so that goes more towards the spine. So yeah, you can do that. Yeah, to feel the energy there. Yeah, or to get your awareness there. Yeah. So there is any theme possible. Yeah, that's okay, Valentina. I answered all of them, I think, all your 3 messages. So yeah. So in Yin, and also with the sequencing, actually, I'm thinking about it. So if you look at a Yang practice, they always have a certain build-up that you need to follow to be able to have it a good Yang practice. With Yin, there is no such thing, really. The only thing is that you have to be intelligent about it. So if you want to do a lot of forward bending, you chose a lot of poses that have a lot of forward bending, then make sure in your counter pose or in the rebound that your spine gets some rest, or in the counter pose that you do a back bend, whether it's a Yin pose with a back bend in the counter pose, or whether it's a Yang movement where you do some flexing and extending of the spine. If you have, for example, a lot of poses where you bend the knees, then do the same thing. Alternate poses where you bend the knees with a pose where you straighten out the legs, for example. Also, you build up like a stronger back bend. You kind of go like from a milder back bend to a more stronger back bend. So those are more indications of like how to sequence a Yin class. But any order you can do. So those are just some specific things that you need to take into account. But otherwise, you can just mix match the poses according to what your goal is of your practice that you want to offer, or what the theme is of the practice that you want to offer. So that depends. But I mix match them, and I know of many other Yin Yoga teachers that there is no specific format that you have to follow to make it a good Yin class. So if there are any more questions? Oh, thanks, Pauline. You're welcome. So I think, also just to check my paper here. Yeah, so also if you, that is the way I teach it personally, is to like really, why do you practice the pose that you chose? What is your goal? So that is functional practicing, actually. So what do you want to feel, or what do you want to trigger, or what do you want to open up? So there's always a reason behind the things or the practices that I offer and why I choose a certain pose. And I think if you teach in that way, the sky is the limit, basically, because there are endless themes that you can think of to give a class on. So if you want to learn that, like how to teach functionally, which means that you can personalize a practice to each and every individual, even though you have a class of 40 people, then it is very handy to do the teacher training, which is the yin and the anatomy one. And there we focus on how the body moves. So we really dive into the physical aspect of the body and how different we are and how to adjust the pose then to make the pose beneficial for that person. And like I said, we target there the 20 lower body poses. So that might then be the online course for you. If you're more interested in the emotional and energetic aspect, that's more the Yin and the Meridian 30-hour online course, where we dive into the whole meridian system and where the meridians are in the body and how to stimulate the chi in those meridians with various poses. But still, the functional approach also there stays very important, because if you are not positioned in the pose in the right way and that it creates tension or pain in your body, then the energy will not flow. So there, the same concepts actually as in the Yin and Anatomy course apply still. So, but it just has a different focus. So depending on what you would like to know about, you can choose either one of them. And you get, if you've watched this webinar, you get a 20% discount of both of the trainings. If you want to do both of them, you can, by watching this webinar, you get 25% discount on the whole bundle instead of the regular 15% discount. So there you go. There you know what to choose for and how much discount you get. Let's see if there... Oh, Laya says, is it important to practice both Yin and Yang yoga? Yes, for sure. Because the Yin practice basically opens up the pathways, and the Yang practice kind of allows you to flush through all the liquids in our body to kind of strengthen, first of all, the muscular system of our body, but also to sweat all the toxins out. Yin yoga detoxifies also, but it's more on a deeper and more subtle level. So yes, Yin and Yang yoga are equally important, but how much of what you need to do, that depends per person. And also it depends on your life, like how much time do you have for a practice? When do you want to practice, in the morning or in the evening? Let's take an example. You have a very busy life, so maybe then more yin would be beneficial for your state of mind and to let go of stress. But a yang practice can do that too for you, because it's a more physical thing if you're working in front of the computer during the day a lot. So that is a personal journey to discover how much yin and how much yang you need. Good to hear. Laia says, oh, can you practice more the one you feel like the one you feel you need? That's the biggest question, isn't it? I would say go inside, feel, and be honest, not from the mind, but from what your body tells you what it is that you need to practice. And if that is difficult for you to determine, then just make a plan for yourself and say, okay, I do 4 times yin and 3 times yang. I'm just saying something now. And practice that for a period of time, and then see what the effect of that is. And then fine tune after 2 or 3 weeks to say, okay, maybe I need to increase a little bit my yang practice, diminish a bit more my yin practice because of whatever reason. It also depends on how you want to use your body. For example, I like to run. So if I do a lot of certain poses like saddle pose, I feel that my knees get hydrated a lot and therefore they feel less compact. So when I'm running, it feels a bit wobbly. So then I just leave saddle pose for a while so that it dries up a bit, literally, in the body, and that actually the strength comes back more into my joint of the knee. So it depends. There is no one answer for this. Yeah, Laura, you can combine yin and yang practices also. You can say, I practice yin first and then I make it more dynamic. And this can be in one practice that you offer. I start yin, do some yang in the middle, and then end with yin. You can also say, I go yin, yang, yin in one practice, or you start yang and you finish yin. Those are all combinations that are possible. You don't have to just offer a yin class and a yang class. You can definitely combine them. But again, the combination of how much when you do yang and when you do yin has an influence on the mood of the class, the ambience that you create. So also there, be mindful and aware like what the effect will be of what it is that you're offering. Okay. I think that were all the questions. If you have some last minute questions, you can let me know. Graag gedaan, Marjel. Ivana, do you have a system plan ahead when sequencing, and how often do you change the sequence? It depends. Because sometimes I have a plan because I want the students to learn something. For example, when I am giving a workshop or a teacher training, and then I sequence the class in such a way because I want them to experience something or to learn something. So then I have a set sequence of poses, but still, when giving variations of a pose and that pose doesn't work for somebody, but I offer a different pose for that person, so that our area that I want them to feel gets targeted for that person, then I just choose that pose for that person. But that is individually. Yeah. Or sometimes I guide them through various options, 3 options, and then I give the choice to the student which of those 3 options targets for them the best way, an area, or targets the best way of opening up the chest or whatever, so that they can choose. And sometimes I have a class planned, and then I come to the space, and then I talk to the students, and then I realize they need something completely different. And then I adapt on the spot the class and do the poses that come to mind from the information that the people gave me. So it's different per situation. But if you begin to teach, and that's what I did also in the beginning, is then I always prepared a class. But after a while, I started to play with the energy in the class, the energy of the people, what I got back from the people, and then knowing the poses, I can instantly on the spot kind of change the sequence that I had planned for that moment. But in the beginning, I planned everything and then I followed that. And then I started playing with the poses that I had planned with the people to be able to offer them a variation that would work for them. You're welcome, Loretta and Frankel. Leontine. Lucinda. You're welcome, Ivana. Okay. If there are no more questions left, You're welcome, Vina. Think it's a wrap up, no? Yeah. Okay, so thanks everyone for being here and listening and for your questions, and hope to see you next time. Thank you.